what are the benefits of fasting?
Mm, okay. Wow, man, that's a big one to unpack too, isn't it? That's the one that everybody
Yeah.
argues about.
Sorry,
So
mate. I just wanted to
that's
touch
all
on
right.
this because I've spoken about fasting before, and it's one of those tools that can be great for health to deal with a lot of
Yeah.
those gut health things that we just spoke about. However, people don't look at it for the health benefits. They look at it for I'm just not going to eat, so
Yeah.
I'm using it to lose weight. I'm putting myself in a caloric deficit, and I'm doing that through fasting. And like the biggest issue I have is people say, oh, I'm like, do you have breakfast? No, I intermittent fast. What, every day? Yeah. Well, that's not intermittent fasting anymore. Like, intermittent means intermittent, not fucking every day.
Yeah. And that's the well, and the thing is, that's another thing that irritates me about intermittent fasting because, when you look at the way a term was originally designed, and then over time it evolves into something else. Intermittent fasting is not a 16/8. Intermittent fasting is like every other day fasting. Okay, so that would be intermittent fasting. What they really need to say is I'm doing time restricted feeding. Like that's the more correct term for it. But I mean now we call it intermittent fasting because everybody does. So I can just yell at the moon, or I can
Because it's
just
a
adapt.
buzzword, bro.
Yeah,
It's a buzzword. It's a fucking hashtag. Everyone
yeah,
understands it. They're like,
yeah.
oh, this is what intermittent fasting is. I'm just not going to eat for this period.
The thing, like I like intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. I think it's brilliant. If I have somebody who's in a fat loss journey and they don't want to feel like they're dieting, as long as you can make it to your window, cool. I can put more food in, cut 2 or 3 meals, and you feel more satisfied. But you have to be able to get to the window. So if somebody's getting reactive hypoglycemia, we're probably not going to do that, or we're going to try to figure out why you're getting reactive hypoglycemia. If you're the person that if you don't eat breakfast and you're just hangry and you're a dickhead to people, we're probably not going to do that. Or we might move your window to eating in the morning and cutting it out early at night to more properly match circadian rhythm, anyways. But um, all of those methods work for people. It's just you have to find the one that works the best in the time slot that they have and what they can actually do. Um, but it's not. People think it's magical. There's nothing magical about it. And they talk about autophagy and they talk about all this shit. You get that just by training and being in a calorie deficit. Uh, I much prefer looking at it as like alternate day type of fasting and just saying, okay, a day is 24 hours. So what we're going to do is, let's say on a Tuesday from noon until Wednesday at noon, we're not going to eat anything. Okay, good. There's one day of fasting. That's all you really need. The body doesn't know. Well, I ate on both of these 2 days. Yeah, that's not really fasting. All your body knows is this has been you know, 18 hours or longer is technically pretty much fasting. But I think that stuff's brilliant too because you can use those days as a massive calorie deficit and then take that food and add it to other days. The problem is nobody does that. So we might say, okay, on your maybe you've got 2 conditioning days, light conditioning, aerobic stuff where you're just doing aerobic training, maybe some walking, maybe you're doing some stretching. Okay, we're not going to eat in that 24-hour period, but I'm going to take that food and I'm going to put it on days your hard training days, you're working legs and back, when you're doing that stuff or full body training so that we can fuel the workout and then recover and then we go through a 24-hour time span where then you're basically in your deficit.
And I think, that ties into what we are talking about before with the gut health stuff. Because if people are eating all the time, it's like trying to pour oil into a funnel and
Mm,
just like overflowing that funnel, man. When we go through a period of fasting, we're actually giving the digestive system time to, start clearing everything out and absorbing those nutrients and pushing out, the waste from the body, and we're giving the system a little bit of a break because people don't understand that if we're constantly eating, like that requires energy for your
yeah,
body to utilize, which is then taking energy away from other areas.
yeah. I think it's like you got to squeeze you got to get all the toothpaste out of the tube. You got to squeeze it out, right? I think for a lot of those people, going to a vegan day where you're just eating vegetables and maybe you're throwing a little bit of essential amino acids in there just to make sure you don't oxidize too much muscle tissue. That's a good thing because people don't eat enough veggies anyway. So maybe having 2 vegan days where you're just smashing vegetables and then just adding a little bit of essential amino acid, maybe some vitamins or whatever, getting a lot of fiber in to start pushing that out. And then for me, if I'm going to have somebody do fasting, I want them to not eat until they feel the migrating motor complex. So when you start feeling the stomach grumbling, you can feel movement, then I know your body's like, okay, I don't have food pushing this out. Now my intestines have to actually go through peristalsis and push it out themselves. And I think that's really useful. And I think it's really useful to get them to understand what hunger is. That hunger can be a few things. It can be boredom, it can be a lack of water, or you can be truly hungry. So if I want to teach somebody what true hunger is, maybe I don't have them eat for 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, maybe even 3 days, and let them feel what true hunger feels like, so they can start associating if they're bored versus if they're actually really hungry.
Mm, mm. Yeah, for sure. That's something that I think, I'm not sure if I got this from you or someone else, but it definitely sounds like something you would say. I
That's
use this with my
foundations
clients.
course.
Yeah, probably. I use so much of that stuff, mate. It's brilliant. But you know, something I say to my clients is like, "Are you hungry or are you craving?" And they're like, "What do you mean? What's the difference?" I'm like, "Well, if you're hungry and I put a bowl of broccoli in front of you, you're gonna eat it. But if you're craving, you're not gonna eat it."
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna start using that too. I'll give you credit for it though, because it's so
Oh
true.
fuck!
Like,
I thought that I got that from you, bro.
no, I don't think so. Maybe I say all kinds of crazy shit, so I don't know. But it's true. Look, like if you're truly that hungry, I could put anything in front of you and you'd eat it. If you're like, I'm hungry, and you're like, I'm gonna go to Macca's and get some nuggets with aioli, well, you're not really that hungry. But
Mm,
yeah, so that
yeah,
stuff
for
can
sure.
be. I think too, like for the if people listening to this want to experiment with this, I think it's a good idea to ease into it, because sometimes people, if they have any type of reactive hypoglycemia things, they can get an adverse reaction. It's going to make them not want to do it. So the first thing is like
What does that mean for people listening?
so basically what it means, you can't keep your blood sugar stable. So you might have a glucose or insulin mismanagement problem. Your blood sugar drops, and then adrenaline gets increased because you can't regulate bringing your blood sugar back up. So you end up getting shaky. You can get disorientated. You can get blurry vision. You get like sweaty palms. Basically the same stuff you feel when you're at a bar and somebody's about to punch you in the face, and you get the butterflies in your stomach. You start shaking. That's that adrenaline dump. So it might be more beneficial to ease into it by saying, okay, this week I'm going to skip breakfast. And then the next week I'm going to skip breakfast and lunch. And then the next week I'm going to go, okay, now one or 2 days a week, I'm just going to skip breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then see if I can last 24 hours. And then you can keep adding more. And what I'll try to do with some people is I'll work them from, kind of skipping breakfast to going to a 16-8. Maybe we go to a 20-4, and then I would go to 24, and then we see if we can get them on a 3-day one, and then we might throw a 3-day fast in there once or twice a year, just to kind of clean stuff out a little bit.
Do you do any fasting?
Yeah.
I go through periods where, I'll do like a 24-hour fast once a week.
Yeah, I mean, I almost exclusively time restrict eat. Now my window is a bit larger, so I usually won't eat until 1 or 2 o'clock, and then I'll finish that off at 9 or 10 at night. So that's what I usually do. Sometimes I'll go dinner to dinner, but the problem with me is
Hmm.
if I go dinner to dinner, I usually start binging. So that's not
Hmm.
a great tactic for me right now. Now, if I get to a point where I don't have as much work, and I'm not as stressed out, and I could probably go back to a 1, 2, or 3 day fast. But the more stressed you are, the harder it is to do that, because you're mismanaging making energy anyways, and then you pull exogenous energy stores out, and your endogenous stores aren't supplying enough ATP for whatever reason, and then it pretty much makes people prone to having sugar and fat attacks. So you'll start eating
Yeah.
stuff you don't normally eat. Like, I don't eat a lot
Yeah,
of.
and that's literally your body just saying, "Hey, I don't have much energy.
Yeah,
I'm expending a lot of energy. I need something, short, sharp, quick, so I can push up my blood sugar levels and I have some available energy." So the first thing that people are going to go to is like these highly processed, palatable foods.
anything with a lot of calories and, like I said, hyperpalatable. Because the body is evolutionarily, the body's in tune for that. If it finds high calorie foods, it wants to eat that, because we're not that. People want to argue, oh, you can't talk about evolutionary stuff anymore, but we're still hunter gatherers living in a not hunter gatherer
What do you mean you can't?
environment.
Like we've been around for millions of
Yeah.
years.
Well, people say that all the time. They're like, well, you can't equate. nutrition and hunger to evolution, but you actually you can. Our genetics haven't evolved
Of
that
course.
much, not as fast as our
Yeah.
environment is, right?
Oh,
Um,
dude, like a revolution is something that happens over a short period. Evolution happens over a fucking long period.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I talk about this all the time with exercise and our program design stuff. There's nothing we're doing in the gym unless you're one of the movement guys and you're focusing on crawling and side kick through stuff like that and rope climbing. That stuff's pretty natural to us as coming from primates. But when you talk about back squatting 200 kilos, our bodies orthopedically are not supposed to do that. Now we can get away with it, but it's like it's like a credit card that you got to pay back at some point. So you start getting all this compression and shear, putting the body through stuff it's not supposed to be doing. You're going to pay a price. So think about that from an evolutionary perspective. We're not really designed to do a lot of things we're doing in the gym. We do them because we want to and because it's badass. But
Mm.
same thing with nutrition. The further you get away from what we're designed to be able to process, the more consequences you're going to have to undo later.
Mm. We're going to come back to the training and the program design course in a
Mm,
moment, but I want to talk about I want to round out this portion with some of the fasting protocols because, there's definitely some health benefits to fasting. There's many different methods of doing it. It's not just don't eat for a certain
mm,
period of time. But the point that I want to make here is that fasting can be good for some people, but it can also be terrible for some people.
mm.
Like if people already have a poor relationship with food and they've, experienced anorexia or anything like that, where they've, seriously reduced their caloric intake for long periods of time, like getting those people to fast may not be a good option, right? Like they've already got a
Absolutely.
poor relationship with food, and that might be adding into that. So this is where understanding your client and understanding their background, their history is so important, man.
Hmm.
Because if you just fucking go, oh well, fasting's good, I'm just going to give this person fasting, but they've been dieting for 18 months. They've slammed their metabolism. They've created metabolic adaptation. They're surviving on 800 calories a day. Like getting those people to fast is probably not going to be a good thing. We probably want to get them, actually increasing their food throughout the day, smaller meals more frequently.
In a lot of cases, if we take the eating disorder stuff out, because that's a big one too, and a lot of coaches aren't supposed to be dealing with that
Mm.
anyways, even though we do, because our clients want to come to us and they expect that. They don't want to have a dietitian come in, which is what they're supposed to do, but yet they won't do it. So we have to figure out what do I do. But I reckon a lot of people need to just eat more globally with more structure before they start a diet. Because you always get people that come in and go, I swear I'm only eating 1,200 calories. Yeah, Monday through Friday you are, and then the weekend the wheels come off, and you're
Yeah.
eating like 4 or 5 days of food over the weekend and food and booze. Let's just eat that much all the time and just be consistent every day. Then now we can start a deficit. So a lot of cases, people don't want to hear this, but you probably would need to eat more every day first. Eliminate the binges, try to reduce the booze as much as possible, make better choices over the weekend. Now we have a good concept of on average, what are you having every day? Cool. Now I've got a baseline. How's your weight going? How do you feel? Okay, now let's take 5 or 10% of your calories out and start a slow reduction of calories. But a lot of the gym pop, they're delusional about what they're actually doing. I'm just eating 1,500 calories. No, you're not. You're probably eating 2,800 a day because your weekend is blowing your average out of the water.
Mm. What's happening there, like the way that I explain this to people is like you're essentially putting yourself in starvation mode, in quotation marks, throughout the week. And then, when you do binge on the weekend, you overeat, your body's like, fuck yeah, we've got all this extra energy coming in. Let's start storing this shit.
Yeah, I think it takes a good 4 or 5 days of very low calorie dieting for you to start affecting or maladapting the metabolism. So what I think is happening is you get people, they think they're eating a certain amount, but they're not tracking, so they have no idea. They're skipping meals, they're stressed out during the week, they're underslept, they're over exercising in relation to how much food they are. So they're in a larger deficit than they think Monday through Friday, and then the weekend comes and their body's like, shit, yeah, food, and then they can't stop eating, and then they end up eating 5 6
Hmm.
thousand calories a day without even thinking about it, and so they're not. overeating long enough to counteract the Monday through Friday. So they do this week after week after week after week. And then the booze is going to mess a lot of things up with your metabolism, and that can and blood pressure and heart rate and stress response, and that'll carry through 3 or 4 days after you're done drinking or binge drinking, I should say, because most people don't drink; they binge drink over the weekend. And then by the end of the week, you create all this metabolic mishap, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and
Hmm.
over years of doing this, they get in a really bad spot. Um, I think one of the things people don't understand how many calories are in booze. They're like, well, this is low carb beer, or this is, vodka doesn't have any carbs or fat, but it's got a lot of calories, and that adds up when you go drink after drink and you're pounding that stuff. And at that point, too, it's not just about calories, it's also about the effect on your immune system and inflammation and your stress response.
Yeah, you're essentially putting um, poison in your body, and your
Yeah,
body treats it like a toxin.
that's right. It is fun. I mean, I love a good drink, but if you're serious about building muscle and losing fat, you've got to pull a lot of that out. And if people would just go without for more than a day, what they'd realize is they don't need that many drinks to feel loose. I've also got a protocol for that too. Like if you're the type of person that you're drinking because you're self-medicating because of stress, the best thing to do is slam quite a bit just initially, just hammer a few drinks, and then you'll get loose really fast because you're basically outsmarting alcohol dehydrogenase. So you put more booze in your body than you can actually detox really fast, and then you stop, and then you just maintain it on 1 or 2 drinks.
It's like that funnel I was talking about before.
Mm,
Your body
yeah,
takes a little bit of time to process it.
yeah. So you're just outrunning your ability to detox it by sculling a bunch of drinks real quick, and then you end up saying something stupid to one of your friends, and now you're no longer friends. So there's pros and cons in every protocol.
Let's throw in some fasting before that as well. No, don't do
Oh yeah.
that.
Don't eat anything and just booze it up.
24-hour fast, then get on the piss.
Mm. Well, the nice thing
Not
about booze,
recommended.
though, the nice thing about booze is thermic effect is around 17%. So at least 70% of the calories is poof gone. So basically just eat protein, veg, and booze, and you're pretty good.